Okay, still didn't make the noise. Weird. Never mind. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we are reading His Reasons. It's a Todoroki X-Rater fanfic by AshleyH713. I'm gonna go into a little more elaboration on that last thing that I said. Apparently, I've learned new information. It isn't just gestational diabetes, but people get left in the with pregnancies. People are in the hospital for long periods of time for all kinds of other reasons, and even if they didn't have complications, they're in there for a couple days. I've learned new information. I apologize for my misunderstanding. I am really sorry about that. That's my bad. That is, my bad. Now I have the new information. You won't get this until after he's born, but, my apologies. Really, I'm sorry that I don't focus during anything, so any kind of, pregnancy talk we've had, I wasn't listening. Yeah, okay. I'm just, focusing as hard. Yeah, okay, this one I'm pretty sure is going to be posted April 1st, if I'm right. So, happy April Fools, if this is the day it gets posted on. If it's not, I'm sorry for getting the wrong day. I'm pretty sure, almost positive, unless I got the order wrong, but I'm almost positive it's going to be April 1st when I post this. So, happy April Fools. If we weren't in quarantine right now, I don't have friends to play pranks on anyway. I have two. Let's rephrase that. I have two friends, but they live super far away from me, and I don't get to see them that often. So the few times we get to see them is during, anime conventions, which I haven't got to go to a whole lot of them. I'm kind of new to that whole thing. So next time I see him will probably be sometime in August for Toshukan. But I'm getting off topic. I'm going to try and get through Season 3, Chapters 3 and 4, because I want to get back into that 2-chapter thing. I just want to get a couple more recordings done. I'm going to only record one tonight, and then get some sleep, because tomorrow we're going to do a lot of packing. Gotta hook up the car seat to the car. I don't know if I'll actually be helping with that or not, because I don't know if Dad will actually want my help. But if he does, whoa bam. Nah, I'd probably mess it up, but... this won't be posted until after, so they won't hear this until later. Yeah. I don't know how far they watch into my videos, but they watch them. I've learned. It's okay, they hear me swear on a daily basis. I'm not too worried about that. I should probably start the video before this gets too long. Let's begin. Season 3, Chapter 3. It was almost sundown when the students finally reached the camp, trudging and dragging their feet as they came upon the clearing. That test was no joke. It seemed like, right when they entered the forest, hundreds of tree monsters blocked their path, forcing them to fight their way out quickly. They just kept coming, with no sign of stopping. It was honestly a miracle everyone made it out so quickly. Amari clutched her chest, feeling the effects of her pills wear off ever so slightly, and caught a glance at Todoroki, who was also struggling for breath. They shared a look between each other and nodded their heads, as if saying they were both all right. Reaching the clearing, finally Ragdoll perked up. "Congratulations, everyone, although it would have taken us only 3 hours to complete the course." The class around them groaned, obviously not pleased that they weren't getting any recognition for what they just faced. "Were you just trying to boast about how much better you are?" Although the cat girl could only laugh, now pointing in the direction of Todoroki, Bakugo, Deku, Ida, and Amari. "I will admit, though, you all are impressive, especially you 5. You acted without any hesitation. Was it because of your experience?" Then, before the 5 could register anything, the woman started going around and kissing the top of their heads as some sort of reward. A reward that no one really wanted. Although, luckily enough, Deku was able to stop her action with a question, now pointing towards a stranger that was watching them. "Wait, I have a question. Whose kid is that?" The red cat... Mandali? Mandali. I don't know. Answered him shortly after. "Oh, he's not one of ours. He's my cousin's kid. Go ahead and greet everyone. Kota? That's said the same, right? I think it's said the same. Deku smiled at the child he now knew as Kota, before walking over to him, extending a friendly hand. The boy looked annoyed, but maybe he was just shy. Hello, I'm Midoriya from UA's Hero Course. It's nice to meet you. But instead of the boy accepting his hand, Kota returned the gesture by kicking the poor green-haired boy straight in the balls, causing him to crumble over in pain. Then the boy just turned around before muttering darkly, I don't intend to be friends with you guys who want to be heroes. Everyone saw this and gasped, except for Bakugo, who smirked at the action, liking his fire. That kid's got spunk. Although Todoroki couldn't help but feel amused by his words. Isn't he kind of like you? This caused Bakugo to take his brow in annoyance, shouting back at him, Shut up, you bastard! Even Amari couldn't help but crack a smile at Todoroki's joke, moving over to Deku and extending her hand. Are you okay? Here, take my hand. The boy accepted as Amari couldn't help but feel a frustrating itch in the back of her throat at Kota's words. That boy didn't know anything about heroes. After she lifted her friend back up, she turned to the small child before speaking. Hey, you need to apologize to my friend. Also, what's your problem with heroes anyway? Her words caused Kota to freeze in his spot, finding the idea funny to him. I don't need to apologize to anyone. It's his fault for wanting to become a hero. This got Amari even more irritated. Yes, he was a child, but he wasn't understanding why they were doing this. What's so wrong with wanting to be a hero? All we want to do is help people. Kota only narrowed his eyes, though, recalling some rather unpleasant memories. And who can you help? You don't look like much to me. As harsh words, Amari's stance grew more deflated, like the boy's words really pierced her skin. Of course she didn't look like much to a child. Although before she could speak, Bakugo moved in front of her, anger now etched in his eyes. Hold on a second, kid. You better watch your mouth. This brat doesn't look like much, but that doesn't mean she can't kick your ass. She looked at her brother, partly surprised he was defending her when another voice entered the space, touching her shoulder lightly. Yes, I think you owe her an apology. Amari looked to her right only to find Todoroki beside her, also defending her from the child's cruel words. Maybe they knew how much that kind of thing affected her. Kota looked between the two scary boys before balling his hands into fists, knowing he couldn't match up to them. He didn't even understand why they were so touchy about that girl. She didn't look all that impressive to him. Then before they could speak anymore, Kota turned away from the group, running off into the house, causing Amari to call out, Wait, Kota! Although it was too late, the boy was gone from their side, just leaving behind an awkward air. Amari couldn't help but stare in the direction he went, wondering if there was something else that the boy then just... else to that boy than just anger. After a huge dinner and some much-needed sleep, the next day of training camp came faster than expected, as they all met Mr. Aizawa. The sun had just begun to rise, so that meant that they certainly had a long day ahead of them. Raising his head to the sky, the man spoke. All right, it's time to start your trainings, to build up and strengthen your quirk. There is only one way that you can achieve that. The students all listened carefully as Mr. Aizawa then darkened his expression, his voice full of malice. And that is it. Break yourselves. You feel like you're dying, but please refrain from actually dying. Their eyes grew hollow as the teacher then began to explain what they would have to do in this training camp. It wasn't going to be pretty. A couple hours had passed since they started, and everyone was giving everything into their training now, sweating and breathing heavily. Bakugo was tasked with throwing his hands into boiling water to extend his sweat glands before letting off huge explosions into the sky. His screams of determination echoed further than any other student. Todoroki was thrown into a tub of water in order to control the temperature of his quirk, rapidly throwing ice and fire in repeated fashion. Breathing heavily, he heard a loud scream which caused him to pause for a moment, knowing that voice anywhere and feeling his heart rate pick up. Stealing a glance at Amari, Todoroki saw her struggling through her quirk, quickly covering herself with gold matter before throwing explosions at the same time. The fact that she was able to use two quirks together was impressive. He still couldn't do that. She groaned in frustration as Mr. Aizawa walked over to her, leaning down. Is that all you have? Don't tell me you're giving up, Bakugo. At his words, the girl felt a newfound determination inside her, screaming back as she threw another explosion with her protective shield. this time bigger than the last few. It looked like it physically hurt her to continue, but she wasn't about to give up. Her chest screamed in pain, but the girl pushed through, knowing that her brother was watching everything. She couldn't let him down. Another explosion later, and the rest of the class couldn't help but stop and watch the girl who was giving it her absolute everything as her veins popped from her skin. Bakugo Amari was really something else. Feeling the heat overtake her body, she stopped when a cold hand rested on her shoulder, snapping her out of her own desire. Amari. Blinking a few times, Amari forced her woozy eyes onto the boy who called out to her, now letting her quirk diminish slowly, her mind snapping back into reality as she silently understood what he was trying to say. You are pushing yourself again. She took a shaky step forward before nodding her head back to him. I know, I'll take a break. Todoroki couldn't help but internally feel relieved for her compliance. A couple weeks back, at his father's agency, he practically had to drag her away from her desire. At least now they had an understanding between them. She shouldn't use her power so rapidly, especially since her pills were rejecting her body. Placing a hand to her chest as if it was on fire, Todoroki grabbed a water bottle next to him before allowing her to take a sip. She really needed to take care of herself. Suddenly a voice called behind them, making Amari's eyes widen all at once. She must have been hearing things. Maybe her mind really was messed up. Long time no see, short stuff. She turned back towards the voice and couldn't help but gasp at the sight before her. Shinso? What are you doing here? Shinso only smirked, though, pointing back towards the other Class 1B students that had just arrived. Class 1C had a little competition before final exams, and top-ranking students in our class got to join Class 1B for training over break. Shaking her head in disbelief, Amari replied, And you won? The boy crossed his arms across his chest proudly in response. Of course I did. I already told you, I'm going to be in the hero corps someday. It's just the first step. Blinking a couple times, Amari couldn't help but admire his declaration, now slapping him across the shoulder playfully while whistling. Well, I gotta say, Shinso, I'm kind of impressed. Look at you. Nodding his head back, he couldn't help but look down at the girl's state. She was sweating profusely from activating her sweat glands and looking incredibly pale. It kind of worried him, especially since he knew about her condition. What happened to you? You look like hell. Sneering back, Amari scoffed. Gee, thanks. You don't look great either. Did you walk all the way? Did walking all this way tire you out already? Shinso noticed the slight sweat on his brow before wiping it off. Physical exertion was not his strong suit. Shut up. Amari couldn't help but crack a smile at that when a cluster of voices stopped her. Now turning to the right and frowning, just a couple feet away from her was a large group of Class 1B girls, and they were circling Todoroki. Now in her eyes, Shinso couldn't help but notice her change in attitude, now looking to where she was. It didn't take long for the wolves to descend. She remained silent, which caused the boy to speak again. If it bothers you so much, why don't you go over there and play the he's mine card? This caused Amari's face to flush, covering her embarrassment with her hand. Oh my god, would you stop with that? I can't do that. Noticing her apprehension, he spoke. Why not? You like him, right? Unless you want me to use my quirk again, and... Although Amari beat him before he could even finish the sentence, slapping him in the chest in a warning. Don't you dare! Like I need that again. Shinso meant it as a joke, but she seemed really bothered by it, watching the girl sigh sadly. I can't do anything. I have no right. Maybe it would be better for him to find someone else. Someone to be with him after I die. Maybe then that would ease the pain. The boy's eyes widened at her words, now realizing why she wasn't stopping those girls. She thought that he'd need to find someone else for when she left. It was kind of heartbreaking to have that kind of mindset. It was no secret that she loved him. Todoroki saw their interaction as well, vaguely hearing the Class 1B girls trying to talk to him about various useless things. Why was that guy here? And why was she talking to Amari so closely? He didn't know why, but Todoroki didn't like him. Shinso was about to comfort the girl from her words when Amari slapped her face, as if to snap herself out of her own delusion. Alright, I think that's enough of a break. I'm going to get back to training. See you, Shinso. Then before he could reply, she was gone from his sight, with only a huge pit of anxiety in his chest. He slightly wished he never found out about her condition, because now he couldn't help but worry about her. Deciding to take a walk in the woods later that night, Shinso tried to quell his overwhelming anxiety from his earlier conversation with Amari. He couldn't help it. After finding out about her, he found himself worried even when she trained. He didn't particularly love the girl, and still found her annoying, but that also didn't mean he wanted her to die either. He sighed to himself when the boy couldn't help but catch a small light from behind a nearby tree. That was odd. Everyone else was supposed to be sleeping by now. Deciding to take a closer look, he heard the loss of breath first, followed by bright flashes of light and someone muttering to themselves quietly. But when Shinso turned the corner, he had definitely not expected to see Amari a couple feet away from him. She hadn't noticed his presence yet, and even though it was in the middle of the night, the girl was still training. Beads of sweat dripping from her forehead as her hands shook, speaking to herself. "Come on, Amari, you can do it!" Then he watched her let out a painful grunt. Throwing her hands out, and a small explosion of her gold matter formed around her body, cracking and breaking around her slowly. It was like it pained her to keep that position. Shinso knew he probably should have made his presence known, but somehow he couldn't stop staring at her determination and drive. Little did everyone know that while everyone else was sleeping, the frail girl was giving her everything day in and day out. It was almost inspiring. Taking a step forward, he heard a twig snap next to him, and Amari sharply turned her head to meet his. Now jumping back in surprise. "Ah, Shinso, what are you doing here?" He strolled to her slowly as she grabbed a water bottle from the corner. "I was just taking a walk. What are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be sleeping?" Casting her eyes down, Amari replied, I don't have time to do that kind of thing. I have to get stronger." "No time to sleep?" That sounded odd, although it wasn't like he could judge. Shinso didn't get the best of sleep either. Amari thought for a moment before placing the bottle down. "Don't say anything about this, especially to Shoto. God damn. He wants me to take it easy, but I just can't do that." Then she picked up a small notebook next to her, causing Shinso to question. "But don't you feel bad about hiding this from him? Isn't he your loving boyfriend?" Closing her eyes as if in pain, Amari spoke back softly. "He'll only worry. I have far too much to do before, well, you know." Just then she changed the subject, crossing her arms across her chest. "I saw you training today. I gotta say, you kinda suck." The whiplash of the conversation caused him to take a few moments before realizing what she just said, now slightly annoyed. "I'm just not great with hand-to-hand combat. It's always been my weak point. That's why I didn't get into the hero course in the first place." Amari nodded her head, thinking for a moment before smirking, now coming up with an idea. "Nah, it's not that. You just need someone to show you how it's done. That's what happened to me." Just then, she readied her fists. "Here, come at me." Blinking in surprise, Shinso put his hand out, shutting her down. "I'm not going to fight you, Bakugo." This only caused her to give a sly smile, coaxing him on. "Oh, come on. Are you afraid you're going to get your ass kicked again by me? I didn't know you were such a chicken, Shintoos." At the sound of her nickname for him, the boy did feel tempted, although he couldn't help but remember her condition. "Oh, please. I just don't want to beat up a sick girl. Do you really think you should be using your quirk like that?" His words only made her smirk, though, before picking up her pill box of pills and throwing them to the side. "Fine. We'll make it fair. No quirks. Only hand-to-hand combat. That way, the sick girl can kick your ass correctly. Any objections?" Her conditions seemed fair, so much so that Shinso felt like he couldn't reject, now moving towards her slowly. "Fine, but I'm not going easy on you." Yet once again, Amari could only laugh. "Funny enough, I was about to say the same thing." Shinso narrowed his eyes then, throwing a fist in her direction only for her to dodge easily. He whirled around once, twice, 3 times, trying to hit the girl, but it had no effect. She blocked every single one. Then he watched her smirk, turning around and kicking his leg from under him and tumbling to the ground. She was so small. How could she even be that fast? Standing above him, Amari spoke, confident and smooth. "Oh, would you look at that? 2 out of 2. I win. You really have to stop underestimating me." Shinso dusted himself off, feeling utter embarrassment from getting his ass kicked by such a small girl. Not once, but twice now. It was like she was in a different league. "Did you do this just to embarrass me again?" Although he was surprised when Amari extended her hand, leaning forward so he could grab it. "What? Of course not. I'm going to help you." The word sounded strange to him. "Help me? With what?" Amari answered back shortly, pride in her stance. "With the training, stupid. Come on. I'll show you how to really fight. That way, you'll be one step closer to the hero course." She was going to help him learn how to fight hand-to-hand combat. Shinso always just believed that wasn't possible for someone like him. She was going to waste her time. My quirk wasn't made for that kind of thing. Just forget it. Although Amari only narrowed her eyes in anger, crouching down beside him. The close contact kind of made him slightly uncomfortable, especially from her stare. Hey, do you think my body was made to be a hero? No. But even so, do you think I let it stop me? If you really want this, Shinso, then don't give up. You have to fight with everything you have, or else you'll never improve. That's when she extended her hand again before smiling. A long time ago, someone gave me the chance to change. Now I want to give you the same. Shinso looked down at her hand and couldn't help but feel this newfound hope from her words. If this kid could break through every barrier, tear down every wall, and push herself to get what she wanted, then why couldn't he? The truth was, he wanted to change. Slowly moving his hand up, he grasped Amari's all at once, allowing her to lift him off the ground with a soft smile. There we go. He felt the warmth between her palms all at once, motivating him to be better, as she was doing. This girl, he hated to admit it, but she was inspirational. She was an inspiration. Just then, she pulled away, causing his hand to run cold again, although the determination was still there. Bakugo. She turned her head towards him. Amari called back, Yes? Shinso then felt his own lips curve into a small smile, wanting to show her what her gesture meant. Thanks. Amari blinked in surprise, realizing she'd never seen him smile before, earning a grin of her own. Don't thank me yet. If you think I'm going to go easy on you, then you have another thing coming, Shintoos. Okay, hold on. Stupid mouse. It don't want to work. There we go. Season 3, Chapter 4. The next day approached faster than expected, as Amari yawned, walking out to the training course slowly. She had to admit, training with Shinso all night didn't give her much rest, but in some other way the girl was thankful for it. Resting and sleeping meant she had to think about the future, and that's one thing she certainly didn't want to dwell on. Amari saw Todoroki a couple yards away and internally sighed, wondering how on earth she was going to tell him about her 4-month lifespan. She didn't even want to see the look on his face, suddenly feeling personally responsible for causing him to hurt like that. She knew she had to tell him, but still found it difficult. Lifting a hand up to greet him, she paused when Uraka tapped her on the shoulder, smiling slightly. Good morning, Amari. Where'd you go last night? You left the room so suddenly and didn't return for a while. We were all worried. Amari nodded her head and began to explain her situation, but leaving out the part where she was trying to train as well, knowing that Todoroki might hear about it and then grow concerned. Oh, I'm sorry for worrying you. I was just helping Shin. But just as she was about to speak his name, a strong hand wrapped around her mouth, pulling her back a couple feet. If you would excuse me, I need to talk to Bakugo for a minute. Uraka seemed confused, but allowed the boy to carry her away to the corner, all while she cursed at him through muffled speech. Then, when she had enough, Amari stuck her tongue out and licked the inside of his palm, causing Shinso to pull away, now disgusted. Did you just lick me? Spitting out the terrible taste, Amari huffed. You wouldn't let go. What the hell is your problem, Shinso? He then wiped his hand across his pants, getting rid of her nasty saliva, and replied, Don't tell them about the training. Amari lifted her brow in confusion, not understanding the big deal. What? Why? Are you embarrassed? Shinso shook his head at that, turning his eyes away from her. I don't want them to think I need help, especially from you. They'll start to assume things. Thinking about his explanation, she supposed it did look bad for him to need a short, small girl to help in hand-to-hand combat. It should be the other way around, and surely Class B would heckle him for it. She guessed she shouldn't blame him for wanting to keep it a secret. Crossing her arms across her chest, Amari smirked. All right, fine. I'll protect your fragile little ego. Only because I know what it's like to be belittled for something you can't control. Shinso breathed out a sigh of relief, then pointing back to Todoroki, who was watching the encounter a couple steps away. That includes your boyfriend. Mari's eyes widened then, immediately shaking her head. I'm not going to lie to Shoto. He's the one person I can't do that with. Shoving his hands in his pocket, Shinso replied smoothly. But haven't you been doing that already? You know, when you train in secret? She cast her eyes to the floor then, muttering back, That's not the same. I never lied to him. I just withheld what I was doing. Thinking back to her words, she realized she was being a hypocrite. She hadn't necessarily lied to Todoroki, but there were plenty of things she wasn't honest about, like her lifespan or training. Amari took another small moment of silence before groaning, stomping her foot once in the process. Fine, I'll keep your little secret, but it won't be for free. If I do this, then you'll have to help me with something. The sudden request was surprise, to say the least, now wondering what Shinso had gotten himself roped into. What is it? That's when she took out a small notebook from her pocket. The small notebook she had during their training last night. The girl seemed very secretive about it. You're a boy, right? The question was odd to him. Last time I checked, yeah. Nodding her head in approval, she flipped open the notebook to the top page, showing him the title. Good. I need your expertise, then. Shinso read the top line and his eyes widened, now understanding why she was so secretive. How long has she been planning this one event? It seemed like the list ran on forever. He was about to speak when another voice caught her off guard. Amari? Jumping 5 feet in the air, she immediately shut the notebook before hiding it behind her back. Oh, hey, Shoto. What's up? Todoroki eyed her action with confusion, noticing the book she was trying to hide. She had shown it to that Shinso guy, no problem, so why couldn't he see it? What are you doing? This made her laugh nervously, playfully slapping him on the shoulder. Me? What am I doing? Nothing at all. I'm just talking to my dear friend Shinso. Isn't that right? Then, in her nervous demeanor, she slapped the purple-haired boy in the stomach, causing him to double over in a hard groan. Man, she really did hit him hard when she wanted to. Yeah. Todoroki turned his head towards the boy and couldn't help but glare. Why did they seem so close all of a sudden? They weren't like this yesterday. Had something happened that he didn't know? Then he caught his eyes on her notebook again, noticing it was the same one she was reading on the way to camp. Your notebook. Gasping at the mention of the object, Amari smiled back, pretending she just realized the object. What notebook? Oh, you mean this notebook. It's nothing, really. It's just some training strategies and other useless things. Can never be too detailed, am I right? Suddenly, Mr. Aizawa called out across the field, saving the poor girl. All right, everyone, stop messing around and start training. This was Amari's cue to get out of there, slapping both boys on the shoulder, already moving away. Ah, well, you heard him. Time to get to work. See you both. Then, before Todoroki could speak again, she was gone from their sight, just leaving the two boys alone. He knew he shouldn't have pried, but the boy couldn't help but grow anxious about what she could be hiding, now speaking low. That notebook. What was in it? Shinso broke away from his usual stance and couldn't help but smirk. The boy was really worried, huh? Wouldn't you like to know? Although this only made Todoroki even more irritated. If she's hiding something important, I need to know if it's about her health. His words only made Shinso lose a smile, waving the boy in question. It's nothing to worry about. By the way, you act like she's with fragile, weak girl all the time, when Bakugo is more than capable of handling herself without you being her bodyguard. I've seen it. A small ball of anger entered his throat at Shinso's words. He didn't understand anything. He didn't understand how the girl tortures herself for the smallest things. You don't understand. She's always so reckless. How can I not worry? Thinking about his words, Shinso couldn't help but sigh, now staring at the floor. He suddenly realized he was in the same exact position. He was worried about her also. Yeah, you got me there. This caused Todoroki to narrow his eyes, noticing the stance that he was taking. It seemed like he really cared about Amari. He just didn't know it yet. Sure, even Shoto knew how amazing she was, but he just hated it reflected in someone else's eyes. He was about to speak again, calling him out, when Mr. Aizawa called back first. Todoroki, Shinso, this isn't social hour. Let's go. This caused the boys to break apart, already moving back to their respective corners. Although it seemed Todoroki just couldn't get rid of that ugly, terrible feeling. Throwing a fist up, Amari blocked the punch easily, yawning in the process as if it was no trouble at all. Is that all you got? Come on, Shinso. Step with your right foot. He eyed her with frustration, trying to follow her instructions before doing so successfully, now feeling more stable in his stance. She really did know what she was talking about. Amari dodged under his swing before pushing him in the shoulder and catching him off guard. That's it. Don't falter. Shinso easily recovered, though, learning from his last fight with her, now aiming his fist lower, towards her stomach. She realized the strategy a bit too late before his hand collided with her chest, knocking the life out of her and crumbling to the ground in a loud groan. He did it. He got a shot in. His eyes widened at the action, already racing forward to help her, and realized he was stupid for using that much power. Bakugo, are you okay? Sorry, I didn't mean to. Although he stopped when a soft laugh could be heard from her. It started off small, before growing louder, her face now gleaming with pride. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about! Mari held her stomach in pain as she stood. Shinso's voice now filled with concern. Are you... what's the word? Masochist? Are you a masochist? I think that's the word. This caused her to slap him on the shoulder in an annoyed fashion. Shut up, I'm fine. You need to hit with that much power all the time. Then she thought of something, pointing to his fist. Although you still need to keep your elbow at a 45-degree angle for maximum damage. You're always stuck at about a 32. Clapping her hands together, Mari smirked. Go on, show me. Shinso lifted his arm up as if ready for an attack. Then she shook her head, now making her way over to the boy slowly. See, you're doing it again. He then froze when he felt her cold fingers wrap around his upper arm, pushing it up slowly to the degree she wanted. There were only a couple steps away from each other now, and Shinso couldn't help but feel his chest flip in anxiety. Was this really necessary? Almost as if reading his mind, Amari frowned. Stay still, would you? She then lifted his arm again until she was satisfied. There we go. Perfect. Moving around him again, Shinso couldn't help but remain frozen as she circled to the front before wrapping her hands around his fist, fixing the placement of a couple fingers. Also, stop letting your pointer finger lead. You're going to break it that way. Shinso wanted to nod his head, but found it difficult, now staring at the girl in front of him. She really didn't have to do this, help him train or anything. She already had far too much to worry about as it was. And yet here she was, helping him regardless. She was the only person that stood up for him, that didn't call him a villain or run scared. This girl had done so much for him. And what was he doing? Still taking from her. Suddenly, a breeze blew through the tree, causing her hair to become astray all at once. She ground at the action, already trying to smooth it down. Stupid wind. Fixing a few strands, Shinso noticed she missed a couple before his brain could process it. Before he could even think, his hand reached forward on its own. His fingers wrapped around the small strand of hair before smoothing it around the tip, touching her forehead lightly and lingering for a moment or two. Mari's eyes widened at the action, already moving back in utter embarrassment and surprise. What are you doing? Her action seemed to snap him back as well, pulling his hand back and trying to come up with a valid excuse rather than just wanting to touch her. Sorry, there was a hair. Nodding her head in acceptance, the girl tried to rationalize the action and spoke. It's okay. Thanks, I guess. Then she stood up from her spot, quickly gathering her items before speaking quickly. Right, so I think that's good for tonight. Practice those things I said, okay? See you tomorrow. Shinso raised a hand out to stop her, but the girl was too frantic, already turning around at a rapid speed. Although because she wasn't looking where she was going, Amari crashed her face into the nearest tree, causing the boy to step closer. Bakugo? Mari realized her mistake quickly, though, patting the surface of the tree before laughing nervously. What? Who put that tree there? Then, before he could ask if she was okay, the girl was gone from his sight. Looking down at his hand, Shinso could still feel the warmth there, groaning to himself in frustration. Why the hell did he even do that? It was like his hand moved on its own. What was wrong with him? The next day approached, and Shinso tried everything within his power to apologize to Mari, but it seemed that whenever he got close, she would make up some excuse or run away. He really messed it up. After training, the students decided to make a huge feast together, everyone now wanting to help cook and make this dream a reality. Mari was busy gathering vegetables when a low voice behind her made her jump. All this running from Shinso was putting her on edge. Do you need help? She turned and found Todoroki staring at her, so she couldn't help but smile, already giving him another basket. Sure, here. You want to help me cut these? He nodded his head, grabbing the basket as Amari teased. I would have never pegged you as a kitchen person, Shoto. Don't rich kids get their lunch made for them usually? Chopping up a carrot, Todoroki replied. Usually, although my mother used to let me cook with her as a child, so I know a couple things. Mari hummed back in response. I learn more about you every day. I bet you were a really big help back then. Moving the carrot to the side, the boy couldn't help but smile at the pleasant memory. He hadn't remembered doing that for so long. Yeah. His smile made Mari's lips turn up also. That was until she heard another familiar voice cut through the space. It was Shinso's. Widening her eyes in fear, she chopped the knife down, only to slice her index finger slightly, causing her to grunt then before she could register it. Amari ducked under the large table, hiding from sight. Todoroki eyed this with confusion. Amari, what are you doing? But she only placed 2 fingers to her lips, shushing him immediately. Watching the purple-haired boy look around the area, he put 2 and 2 together, realizing she was hiding from him for some reason. The reason why, though, was still a mystery. Once his voice disappeared, Amari popped back up, sighing in relief. I'm going to give myself a heart attack one of these days. She laughed to herself, but Todoroki just wanted answers. What happened? Why are you hiding from him? Did he do something to you? His multiple questions had her head spinning, waving them off one by one. What? No, it's nothing like that. I guess I'm just overreacting. The hell was that? Never mind. Just sounded like someone knocked on my door. Maybe I'm hearing things. Although that didn't quell his fear in the slightest. What do you mean, overacting? Amari, I don't want to pry, but is there something up with you? Why aren't you telling me? Her eyes grew wide for a moment before brushing it off again. There's nothing up. I think you're getting a little paranoid, Shoto. Yet right after she said that, Amari yawned loudly, causing him to prove his point. You've been exhausted this entire trip, and Uraka said that you've been sneaking out at night. Are you hiding things from me, Amari? Don't think I haven't noticed. Setting her knife down, the girl felt that familiar echo of shame in her throat she knew all too well. She didn't want to hurt Todoroki like this, but she still couldn't tell him. I'm sorry, but what I'm doing isn't bad. You have to trust me. He wanted to. He really did, but somehow Todoroki couldn't feel at ease with just that. Does it have something to do with that guy? It took a couple minutes of her to understand the question, and not really liking the response. What is that supposed to mean? Although Todoroki could only shrug, now inferring everything from his stance. Nothing, you two just seem close. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Was he accusing her of cheating on him? The idea itself hurt, knowing that he was her entire world. Hold on, are you jealous of Shinzo? Todoroki didn't like the words on his tongue, and returned to chop another carrot slowly. What if I said I was? Amari eyed the boy in utter shock before letting her lips curve into a small smile. You're so cute, Shoto. Her words brought a hard blush onto his cheeks, now feeling them burn all at once. Don't say that. Are you making fun of me? Although Amari could only smile even wider, noticing his face grow to an even lighter shade. Of course not. Sorry, I guess I'm just not used to this kind of thing. Turning away from her, he stopped when she rested her hand on his, covering it lightly. Hey, it's not like that, okay? I can't tell you now, but you have to trust me on this. We are just helping each other out with something. He wanted to inquire more, but the warmth of her hand stopped him. It was the last thing she was giving. It was like she was giving him her word silently. After that, he felt dirty for distrusting her. Putting his knife down, Todoroki then returned the action, grabbing her hand slowly and nodding his head. Alright, I'm sorry for overreacting. And Rai smiled back when a couple students whistled in their direction, the two not realizing that they were out and open. Hey, stop flirting and finish up, would you? The couple both flushed with embarrassment before letting go of each other's hand and focusing on the dinner before them. They tried to, but the two couldn't help but smile under each other's breath, realizing just how much they valued each other. Shortly after dinner, Shinso was making his way over to clean the rest of the dishes as the others started telling ghost stories around the campfire. That was never really his kind of thing. Although, as he turned the corner, he almost dropped the pot, now seeing a figure resting against the side of the house on the back steps. He moved a bit closer, only to realize that the strange one was none other than Amari. His chest rose ever so slightly as she laid across the steps. Shinso wondered how careless she could be to sleep in such a public place. That just spelled danger all over it. Placing the pot on the ground, Shinso moved up to the girl before speaking to himself. Stupid girl, what is she even doing? He then crouched down so that they were eye level, poking her cheek in hopes that she would wake up. What am I going to do with you? Sadly, it didn't wake her up, but the action caused the girl to groan before reaching her hand out and grasping onto the boy's shirt in a tight grip. Shinso gasped at the action, already trying to pry her fingers off. What are you doing? Get off me, short stuff. Although she only happily smiled in her sleep, a bit of drool pooling from the corner of her mouth. This caused him to sigh and give up, now watching the sleeping girl. Suddenly the urge to reach out came again as Shinso wiped a couple pieces of hair away from her face. As he did before. What was wrong with him? Why couldn't he stop thinking about this girl? She groaned again, this time shivering from the breeze, and he knew she couldn't sleep out here like this. Someone had to take care of her. Grabbing onto his shoulders, he carefully hoisted her up, only for the girl to register some kind of human contact and cling to it to escape the cold. Amari then sloppily wrapped her arms around the boy, causing him to gasp and try to push her off. Bakugo, stop that. But once again, she only smiled in her sleep-filled dream, snuggling into his chest and muttering, Shoto. That proved it. This crazy girl thought he was her boyfriend. That was why she was being so clingy. I'm not Todoroki. Get off me already. After a couple failed attempts, he realized it was hopeless reasoning with the girl. She really was a handful. Debating on what he should do next, Shinso shivered when he felt her breath run across his neck, his heart rate now picking up at a rapid speed. It was like they were back in the forest, back when he did something he probably shouldn't have, and scared her away. That feeling was there again, the feeling to draw closer to her. Even though he knew it was wrong, his fingers twitched at the idea of holding her, of getting closer. Then, almost as if he couldn't help it, the boy's arms lifted towards her back, slowly landing in an extremely light hug, taking in her scent. But before he could even think about adding more pressure, a voice stopped him. What do you think you're doing? Prying his arms away in a single movement, Shinso sharply turned his head around, only to find Todoroki glaring back at him. Oh no, he'd done it now. She fell asleep on the steps, so I was trying to take her back inside. That's when she clung on to me for some reason. Todoroki took in his explanation quickly before understanding that could possibly be true. He did recall her reaching out to him back in school as well. Then without a word, he leaned down and picked up the small girl, cradling her in his arms as she snuggled against his chest in a single motion. I'm sorry about that. It's a habit she has. Nodding his head back, Shinso froze when the boy spoke again. But that doesn't explain what you were doing before. He knew exactly what Todoroki meant. The hugging. The close contact. Contact? Shinso wished he had an explanation, but couldn't find anything. That was a mistake. Todoroki then tightened his grip on the girl before continuing. What were you doing the last couple of days? She's been exhausted. Do you have something to do with it? Shinso remembered the promise he told her not to reveal, but couldn't help but feel the need to explain himself now, after everything. He didn't want to cause a hole in something that Amari loved so much. She's been helping me train at night so I can keep up with the rest of the class. I asked her not to tell you. Don't blame her. The boy remained silent after that, thinking about how far she was going just for him. She was refusing sleep just so this guy could improve his training. To be honest, that sounded like something she would do. But that's not what angered him. He was running her down. At the long silence, Amari's boyfriend there narrowed his eyes, looking down on the boy as he just caught trying to make a move, and hissed. I'm only going to say this once. Amari acts like she's strong and independent, but she needs a strong support system. Taking a threatening step closer, the boy continued. That being said, don't unload your problems onto her. She already has far too much to worry about. Shinso's eyes widened as Todoroki then took another step closer, his voice low and scary, calm. Now answer me, honestly, Shinso. Do you like her? Feeling his heart hammer in his chest, sweat starting to accumulate on his brow. What? What are you talking about? Although the boy showed no mercy, narrowing his eyes in disdain. Maybe you haven't realized it yet, but even so, Amari is precious to me, and I will never walk away from her. If you don't wholeheartedly think you can support her like I can, then stay away. A sharp chill traveled up Shinso's spine as the boy showed no mercy, although he still wanted to believe that his absurd fantasy wasn't true. I have no idea what you're talking about. You really think I would like someone like her? Todoroki wasn't convinced, though, just turning away from the boy before muttering, Call it a hunch. Just remember what I said. Then the boy walked away, carrying Amari in his arms gently as she absent-mindedly smiled against his chest. No, he was not going to give her up to just anybody, especially not him. Amari sloppily opened her eyes to the moon above her and turned confused. One minute she was cleaning up dinner, and the next she was sleeping. Those last few nights of no sleep must have really been messing with her body. Yawning back, she stretched out her arms only for a voice to shake her. Did you sleep well? She nodded her head as if still half asleep, catching her eyes on Todoroki, who was leaning over her. Reaching up to touch his face, Amari smiled. What a nice dream. Grabbing onto her hand, Todoroki replied, "It's not a dream." It took a moment for the words to register in her mind again. In her mind, before they clicked, the girl busting up from her position all at once. It seemed like she was laying on his lap again. "Oh, sorry, Shoto," although the boy didn't seem to mind, brushing her hair from her face. "You always cause trouble, don't you?" She felt her face flush in response. "Sorry, it seems you're always picking up my messes." Todoroki couldn't disagree with that in the slightest. "Shinzo told me why you've been out so late. I'm sorry for not trusting you, although you really shouldn't worry about him so much. Well, at least not to the point of sleeping in random places." Placing a hand behind her head, Amari answered, "I know, maybe I got a little carried away, but I couldn't help it. He reminded me of myself, wanting to change. I just want to show him that he could." Her explanation was sweet. Her wanting to help others, that was always a quality he admired of hers, no matter how much it got her in trouble. "And you did, right?" Nodding her head, Todoroki couldn't help but feel a little proud of her, placing a hand on her head like he would do with a small child. "Good job. I'm sure you really helped him. But next time, try to help yourself with that, alright?" Agreeing with his statement, Amari sighed. "Yeah, I know." He seemed satisfied with that. Well, that was until she grew even more sullen. "Shoto, I have something to tell you. You were right, I was hiding something from you." Growing far more concerned, he placed a hand on her arm, slightly giving her the strength that she needed. "What's wrong?" Amari then cast her eyes away from him, speaking lowly. "Remember what I said about having a year to live?" The boy nodded his head, now more anxious than ever, but letting her continue as her lips curved to a sad smile. "Well, I talked to my doctor, and it seems that's no longer accurate." Todoroki felt his heart stop in his chest, drawing her closer in silent fear. When he spoke, his voice was like a whisper. "How long?" She remained silent, which just made him even more worried. Gritting his teeth and speaking a touch more aggressive, he needed to know. Now. "Amari, how long?" Closing her eyes in invisible pain, Amari answered back, "Under 4 months?" He felt his grip loosen on her arm, falling to the side in utter terror and shock. 1 year was already heartbreakingly painful, but now she only had a couple months? No, it couldn't be. Standing up all at once, the boy began to pace back and forth, not wanting to come to terms with reality. No. Then another question rang in his mind. "Wait, how long have you known about this?" Amari then stood up, placing a soft hand on his arm. "A couple of days before the training camp." Her response caused the boy to grow lightheaded. "That long? Why didn't you tell me?" Shaking her head in response, Amari replied, "I didn't know how to." This caused him to become even more frantic. "Amari, you can't keep hiding these things from me." She nodded sadly in response when Amari felt Todoroki's arms around her, comforting her all at once. "Why do you keep these things to yourself when you're hurting? I'm right here. That way we can face it together." Amari thought she had come to terms with her short lifespan, but in feeling his embrace, she couldn't help but get choked up a tiny bit. "I'm sorry," although he only hushed her cries, rubbing her back in small circles. "It's okay. Don't hold anything back. I'm right here." She clung onto his shirt for a moment until his next words caused her to freeze. "Amari, I think you should stop using the pills. You're just destroying yourself." Pulling away from him all at once, Amari somehow felt betrayed for some reason. What was he even saying? "Don't joke about that." Yet it seemed Todoroki wasn't in the mood for jokes. "I'm serious. I don't even know who gave you these pills. Maybe if you stopped using them, your lifespan would..." But Amari wasn't hearing it in the slightest, already shutting him down. "It would mean that I would go back to being the useless, frail little girl who couldn't do anything. I'm not going to live without my quirk, Shoto. I'd rather die." Throwing his arms out in desperation, Todoroki tried to make her understand exactly what she was doing. "Don't say that. Don't say that. You'll just give everything up like that. You're more than just your quirk, Amari." Yet she could only yell back, feeling the shame bubble in her chest. "No, I'm not. I worked too hard to just throw everything away. I have been tortured, shunned, pushed to my breaking point, and survived just so I can be here. Maybe I have a memory that forgets chunks of time, but I have to force my body to move every damned day but I promised myself that I will be a hero, even if it kills me. Closing her arms over her chest, Amari continued darkly. So what if those pills eat away at my life? At least then I would know that I was worth something to Katsuki. Todoroki was about to speak when his mouth ran dry, frozen to his spot. Amari was about to call him out on it when a voice stopped her, freezing her entire core. It was small and quiet, like he couldn't process what he just overheard. What the fuck did you just say? Almost afraid to turn around, she finally gave the courage, now coming into contact with those same red eyes she always knew and loved. It was Katsuki Bakugo, and he heard everything. Oh, fuck. That last little bit, man. I almost cried. Check her out. She's a good writer. I like her stuff. I'm going to end the video here. This will be posted April 1st, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to end it before it gets too long. You will hear me in the next video. Bye-bye.